Since the start of the Israel-Hamas conflict, President Biden has been a staunch ally of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. With Biden now bowing out of the presidential race, he is intensifying his efforts for a ceasefire in Gaza during his final days in office.
And we'll keep working to bring hostages home and end the war in Gaza and bring peace and security in the Middle East.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken confirmed on Monday that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accepted a bridging proposal from the United States aimed at advancing a ceasefire in Gaza. Blinken urged Hamas to also accept the proposal to facilitate further negotiations.
Just last week, the president put forward a proposal with Qatar and with Egypt to try to bridge the gaps that remain between the parties so that we could get agreement to what the president put out there a couple of months ago. In a very constructive meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu today, he confirmed to me that Israel accepts the bridging proposal, that he supports it. It's now incumbent on Hamas to do the same.
During a 2.5-hour meeting with Blinken, Netanyahu praised U.S. efforts in regional defense and its support for Israel's security interests. He emphasized that the initial stage of the deal aims to secure the release of as many living hostages as possible.
I had a good and important meeting today with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. I greatly appreciate the efforts that the U.S. is making in regional defense against the Iranian axis. This is important, of course, for the state of Israel. I also greatly appreciate the understanding that the U.S. has shown for our vital security interests as part of our joint efforts to bring about the release of our hostages. I would like to emphasize the efforts to release a maximum number of living hostages already in the first stage of the deal.
Hamas senior official Osama Hamdan criticized Blinken's claim that Netanyahu agreed to a new proposal. Hamdan said the proposal is unclear and doesn't match what was previously agreed. "We don't need new Gaza ceasefire negotiations. We need to agree on an implementation mechanism," he added. Truce talks are scheduled to resume this week. Recent discussions in Qatar did not yield a resolution, but laid the groundwork for renewed efforts. Blinken's visit comes amid increased scrutiny on U.S. President Joe Biden, as pro-Palestinian demonstrations coincide with the Democratic National Convention. Several significant obstacles remain in the ceasefire talks. Hamas seeks a ceasefire agreement that ensures a permanent end to the conflict in Gaza. In contrast, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has committed to achieving total victory and insists on the right to continue military action in Gaza until Hamas is no longer deemed a threat to Israel. Disputes also persist over the control of the Philadelphia corridor. Israel wants to retain control of this area to prevent arms smuggling, while Hamas demands a complete Israeli withdrawal. Israeli leadership is divided on this issue, with some advocating for ongoing military presence and others suggesting remote monitoring. Additionally, there is contention over the return of displaced Palestinians to northern Gaza. Israel proposes screening returning individuals to ensure they are unarmed, whereas Hamas calls for unrestricted return of those who fled south. The proposal includes a phased release of hostages, with the first stage focusing on the return of 33 hostages, either alive or dead. Netanyahu is aiming to maximize the number of living captives freed at this stage. Negotiations, mediated by Egypt, Qatar, and the U.S., are set to continue in Cairo, with these key issues still unresolved.